to another episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. This is Work 2.0 on the road. I'm your host, Rachel Wells, and again, this is where we talk about the future of work, AI, leadership, and power. And today I'm at Workhuman Forum in London. As you already know, I've already interviewed Susan David, an amazing interview. We planned it to be like 20-ish minutes. We ended up going into 40 minutes. That's how fascinating the conversation was. We also got to speak to the wonderful Kiana Schmeidel, who is Workhuman's Chief Human Experience Officer. Quite a spin on HR. And to round off the day, I'm finishing it, last but not least, with Eric Mosley. Welcome, Eric. You are the...
I am the founder and CEO of Workhuman. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. So I want to get right into it because I want to give you some quick fire questions. I'm sure, we're in the afternoon, we're wrapping up. So I don't want to keep this too long. So I know that you started this whole movement like a couple of decades ago, well, more than a couple of decades ago, in fact. And your whole theology, your whole philosophy, your whole thesis is about human connection. And even in your keynote today, talking about how that data, be like with future leaders that can identify leaders within an organization, how that can power the human side, the human element of organizations. I thought that was really fascinating. So I just want to know from you, why do you think that this idea of human experience is most significant right now in the AI era?
Well, I think we knew from the very early days that recognition as an activity, especially peer-to-peer recognition, where employees, they want to say thank you and they write a nice message and they say thank you, and there's literally thousands of these instances of goodwill happening in a company. We noticed from the very early days that there was an incredible amount of data that came out of those moments, because employees were basically describing their colleagues' work. So they were eulogizing their colleagues, trying to give positivity to their colleagues, but in the act, they were describing the work, they were describing the person, they were even talking about skills and talents that each individual had and how work gets done in the company. So even from the very early days, we realized that is kind of like a gold mine of HCM data about how work gets done and what the talent profile of everyone in the company is. And so as the world of human capital management has developed, as everything has kind of evolved over the years, and the rise of AI, well, AI is obviously extremely powerful, but it's at its most powerful when it has great data to power the learning of the models. And so where do you get that HR data? Well, recognition and performance data that's kind of comes from Workhuman Cloud is probably the most powerful form of data there is in HR, because it's crowdsourced. It comes from the people, and it's their genuine opinions. It's not something that they have to do. It's not a process like a 360 review where they have to fill out the form and nobody wants to do it. It's more that they are inspired because of the work that they witness. And when they do that, they get into a much more honest frame of mind, and they really describe how they feel about their colleagues and the work. And so AI can pick up on that. AI can then take all of that text and turn it into genuine insights for the company.
It's something really fascinating about what you're sharing, and the whole concept of Workhuman as well, is that last year I was at Asana's Work Innovation Summit, which was held in late summer. And one thing I found fascinating was Dr. Mark Hoffman was saying in his keynote that one of the biggest use cases, or the best use cases for AI, and for agentic AI specifically, is in HR. And I thought, that's quite fascinating. And then there's more since then. I've seen more research come out which says that AI agents have their best power and effectiveness when it's used in HR. Now I'm seeing why that's the case, through this conversation. So when it comes to the concept of human intelligence, and you're saying that basically workplace behavior is this really special intelligence layer within organizations. What are companies able to see now? And I know that you've touched on this in your keynote, but for those who didn't get to catch it, what are companies able to see now through this human intelligence layer that we now have, such as through future leaders, that traditional management HR systems would completely miss?
But what we've seen over the last couple of years is that you can start to create data analytics and kind of AI outputs that will show you the hidden performers in the company, which is very often people that don't come to mind first.
Right.
If you talk to a team and ask them, who's the most instrumental person on this team, there's a lot of kind of bias that comes back from those questions. Whereas AI will just, if it has the data, that's the important thing, if it has the data, it will actually tell you who was the most instrumental person on the team. And it's kind of a eureka moment then for the team members. So hidden performers, people who have outsized influence on the performance of the company, are absolute, incredible insights to have for any manager or leader.
Yes.
But now it's kind of evolved even more, because now with future leaders, we're able to actually tell the company who they're going to promote in the future. Now, this is a very kind of bold, big claim that you can actually use this data to give you a list of people that you are going to make a VP in 3 years' time.
That's an audacious statement, for sure.
It is. But the good news is it's backed by the science. And the science shows that when you give it a certain amount of data up to a certain time period, it can predict things that happen after that time period without having any access to data beyond that time period.
Right.
So about 80% of the time, it's going to tell you out of a pool of people who out of that pool will be made VP or SVP or EVP in the future. And that's really incredible asset for most leaders, because now they know who these people are most likely to be. So then they can make sure that they retain them. I mean, the last thing you want is your very best person
and you lay them
leaving. You lay them off, or they leave and they go to your competitor. And it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
So now they get to make sure that they retain them, and they make sure that they can nurture them so they could, give them extra experience, and so that they're more effective when they are promoted.
Right.
But that kind of an insight, that's only really has come through the most advanced models that have now been, made available over the past. Plus our data scientists and the data that we have that comes from the type of programs that we run. But that's changing. That's literally changing the game, because if you think about succession, all companies have succession processes, but they're hit and miss, and they're kind of political, and there's all sorts of, they're biased, there's all sorts of issues around them. To be able to supplement those processes with basically a product which tells you what's going to happen in the future means that you can be much more, have much better judgment about how to treat people now as you go into that future.
For sure, 100%. I think also the beautiful thing about it is it enables greater diversity of thoughts and innovation in leadership, because, like you mentioned, you can have bias towards a specific person, your team, or a specific type of person, because we naturally are attracted to people who are like us, right? But then with that data, it's uncovering people that you probably wouldn't have thought of and selected, and that increases that diversity of thoughts and innovation at the top levels in the organization. Amazing. Now, I always like to throw a random question in, which is a bit of people often find it a bit of a challenge, but it's kind of, because we talk a lot about the future of work, and I really like to think about what might happen if, or in the chance of, to kind of give people that assurance of kind of what to expect, what your prediction might be. So here, are you ready for yours?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So when it comes to recognition data, do you feel, or do you think that in, say, 5 to 10 years' time, that could eventually replace things like traditional performance reviews and a resume?
Well, I mean, you've actually asked a very pertinent question that is on our minds a lot. I think, yes, I think ultimately recognition data, you see, it all depends on the type of recognition program that it is. A lot of companies will run these recognition programs that are very surface level. They're almost like, they're kind of junk food, People snack on these things and then they're gone. Whereas a more nutritious form of recognition gets everyone in the company involved. So you make sure you're hitting 80-90% of the workforce. You're making sure there's a throughput of actual awards. So there's real data, real volume. And then you're making sure that they articulate themselves when they say thanks. Now, if you do that, the data that comes from that type of recognition, you could literally replace some of your performance management processes. In fact, we've been able to reconstruct performance management just using recognition data from some of our kind of best customers who have great programs.
Right.
So yeah, using those programs to really upturn how HR looks at developing people, who they develop, how they retain people, how they onboard people, all of how departments and groups interact, looking at the different social graphs of people in companies, finding the informal groupings of people that don't exist on an org chart but need to be protected and enhanced. All of these things can actually be done with recognition data and the right tools to look at it when it's such a large data set that no kind of human can process it itself. That's what those tools give you, the ability to look at, gigabytes filled of tens of thousands of recognition moments.
So to take it a step further, do you think that maybe in 10 years' time, someone could use this as their new resume?
Yeah, I think, over time, if you're in a company with those type of programs, to be able to take that with you to another company it's something that we've always wanted to actually create as kind of like this, a lifetime resume that you can take with you from company to company. I think certainly that's something in the future we'd love to do.
Eric, thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to see that, and in 10 years' time, I'm going to remember you're the first person to say it. So thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic.
And for those of you who've been watching Work 2.0, you've seen all the interviews and the footage from today and the fantastic discussions that we've been having at today's forum. And you want to stay tuned and you want to know what this means for your leadership, for your organization, for your teams. Definitely follow Work 2.0, the podcast, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Comment, share with your co-workers, rate it, and don't forget to follow the newsletter. And I'll see you in next week's episode of Work 2.0, the podcast.